Today's episode of Real Talk Christian Podcast is sponsored by the Christian Standard Bible. The goal of the CSB is to be faithful to the original languages without sacrificing clarity, all while maintaining both accuracy and readability. With the beautiful designs and multiple study Bible options, everyone from adults to teens and even children can find a CSB Bible that they enjoy. Learn more at csbible.com. Again, that's csbible.com.
Welcome to Real Talk Christian Podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations about faith, culture, and society. I'm your host, Chris Fuller.
And this is Timothy Markhyde.
And on today's episode, we're going to do a no prep conversation. We have nothing, but we're going to talk about the Christian's response to the world around us. So, Mr. Timothy, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Oh, did Joe text you back? Did Joe Frericks message you back?
He sent a 20-second video and a 5-second video, so I'm going to have to watch him in a little while.
So, for context, episode 40, we interviewed Joe and Kimberly Frericks before they left for Peru, and now they're crushing it down in Peru.
They are.
And he's
cheating on us.
He's cheating on us.
He's cheating on us.
I almost hesitated to use that word, but he's cheating on us.
He is.
He went on a different podcast.
He's on another podcast.
So I sent him a message,
and then
you sent him a video message. Oh, goodness. But
I'm sure
seriously, Joe, we hope you're doing good,
we
bro.
love you, buddy.
We do got to get you back on to hear about what God's been doing down in Peru.
Heck yeah.
It'd be really cool if we could get down to Peru to do it.
That would be awesome.
Could we... can someone sponsor us to get down to Peru? Because we ain't got that kind of money.
Yeah, like, could somebody throw us, like, I don't know.
A couple thousand bones?
What do you think, about five G's to get us down there and
hang out and do what we got to do and eat and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
but, goodness. People never know what to expect when they jump onto RTC.
You know, we just are what we are.
I do love how you were so calm and cool and collective, and then I broke you.
Just a little bit, though. Not fully broke.
It wasn't as bad as when you Kermit the Frog me that one time with Sean Connery. Oh, goodness. Well, dude, people, if they've been listening for a bit or been following on social media, they should know this is our third episode for the night.
Third one in your mom's house.
In my mom's house. Now, I will say, when we both get really loud, I can watch my levels, and like when you get loud, it goes whoosh, off the back wall and whacks into my microphone. So there might be still some echoes this episode when we get a little passionate.
Mark. Oh, yeah, I can hear it now.
Can you hear it now? Yeah, so if there are some echoes, and it's not the best, highest quality in the world, it's okay. This is like,
you know
we
what?
keep getting kicked out of our location.
You know what? All that matters is your mom. It's 10 o'clock at night, and your mom's still
She's probably sleeping. She's probably sleeping right now.
So sweet.
That's my mother. If it's up to her, she'd be in here cooking food for us right now.
We should get your mom on the podcast.
No, because you're going to talk crap. Okay, dude. Okay, so.
Exactly. The people want to hear.
I get in so much trouble. So the house next to us might be going up for sale soon.
What?
Super amazing guy. He's not doing well health-wise. Like the first responders had to show up. I don't know what's going on. I haven't been able to talk with them. And so that, needless to say, the house might go up for sale soon. And Beth was like, "Your mom needs to buy that house. That'd be amazing. It'd be amazing." I'm like, oh, I don't want my mom to be my neighbor. She's going to be over here all the time. And
it would be a everybody loves Raymond.
I knew. I get a text from my mom saying, "So I hear you don't want me to be your neighbor." I'm like, I did say that, but and I text, "Beth, you're getting me in trouble." She's like, "Well, I didn't say that. She must have just knows you well enough." I'm like, "Come on." Goodness, my mom would talk. Yeah. How do you raise a stubborn, terrible child? Featuring Wendy Hyde talking about Mark Hyde. Like, that's what that conversation would be.
But see, it would be a good conversation. Like a single mother raising her children.
I think a good conversation with that would be is, how did my mom
survive?
Not lose her faith?
How did she survive?
After losing her husband and then her second husband left her and
right.
had a bunch of issues with that, and now
this
dealing with adult.
What are we doing this for? We should
some
grab
adult
your mom.
kids not quite living the way they should. Some hopefully are.
Oh, dude, we should get your mom and my mom and do like a mom's podcast.
Before we do that, we need to get the wives on the show.
We need to get the wives, yeah.
Now, we did get a wife on the show with Beth, and now you and Janelle need to record your own episode. That would be cool.
Gotta have the time, man. It's so hard with the kid. Maybe when we get the studio at my house.
Yeah, because we had to wait till I think we started recording like 9 o'clock or 8:30 or something.
Get the kids down and go to a quick episode. But you never know. Once the studio's in my house in the basement and all set up in our, like, we're gonna have an actual studio
and an LED sign, not LED, but it's like a wood. It's a wood sign with LED lights in it.
So cool.
The sign is boss.
I can't believe Janelle bought that for me. It was awesome.
So cool, dude. Yeah, she was texting me about it, and we were trying to figure out the plans and whatnot. And I'm like, this is gonna be sweet.
Let's just say the studio is going to be legit here over the next 6 months.
It's going to be
by the time we get it
really
all
cool.
set up and everything, it's going to be awesome.
And right now, we're not on YouTube because we don't have a studio, and we're sitting at my mom's kitchen table.
Because she's nice enough.
It's not even a kitchen table. It's actually, this is a brunch table.
Here's what the people don't understand, is that we got here at 6 o'clock tonight,
Yep.
and she's let us use her house, and it's now 10 o'clock, and we're still like, I don't know.
Who knows how long?
However long until the end of this podcast, and then we got to tear back down, pack everything up.
And then
she's
go
just
home.
letting us sitting here. Like, we're probably not going to get out of here till 11 o'clock at night. Like, that's straight 5 hours that she's let us invade her house.
As my mother.
Just a wonderful woman.
I love it. I don't think she's ever listened to a single episode,
Probably
but she's
not,
a supporter.
But that's all right. You know what? That's okay.
She is a supporter. So we are on the 3rd episode of the night, which for most people, they're like, it's just a new week, dude. What are you guys even talking about? But because it's so dang late, we ain't got coffee this episode.
No, we don't. I'm drinking Aha by Watermelon. Saying it was featured in the last episode, so, you know.
There it is. I'm like, where'd my Gatorade go? I got my Gatorade.
You got the Haterade.
Actually, I got Kirkland.
Kirkland
I got Costco brand Gatorade. It's red too. But we had our coffee. We had our local coffee. We're out of reviews. We talked about it. So we get to have the fun part now.
We can do the Would You Rather.
Let's do it. Let's do the Would You Rather.
Would you rather eat everything you eat be blended into a milkshake, or always have to wear at least 8 layers of clothes? Milkshake, give me the milkshake. I sweat all the time as it is.
But that's every single time.
That's all right.
No.
Yeah, because I'm not wearing... I would die, dude. I wouldn't die from the milkshake. I would die from wearing 8 layers of clothes. I sweat to death in shorts and a T-shirt.
And here's another thought.
Because, dude, you got to wear...
Would you just get used to drinking that?
But here's my thing. Is like, you'd have to wear 8 layers of clothes to bed.
Oh, no.
Come on, bro. Like, I would die.
Okay, yeah, you've convinced me. I'll do milkshake.
Right.
Let's do milkshake. Let's see what people say.
65% of people said they'd do the milkshake. 35% said 8 layers.
You know, we've been in the majority for most of these.
I think I got it figured out. I think if you tap the first one, it's always going to be the majority. All right, so here's the other one. Be transported permanently 500 years into the future.
Whoa.
Or be transported permanently 500 years in the past. I'm taking the past, bro. I'm taking the past.
500 years, that'd be medieval period.
Yep.
1500. As much as I love history,
You want to do it?
I think I'd go future.
All right, we're going to hit future.
Because I know what the past is, and I'd be a little dirty peasant.
No, you might be a court jester.
Dude, I would be in the stock so stinking as a kid I would be. Now I don't do things
So the future is the top one, so I'm going to guess that's majority, right?
Okay.
Here we go. 74% said future.
Oh, I think it's because we don't know, like, what's the future like?
Right. It could be like
The year
nuclear explosion.
2050?
Everybody's living in like bunkers.
I mean,
Like, how much better would that be to being in the open air of the past?
have you been watching Loki again?
Yes.
I'm like, you're explaining Loki. And then there's my mind where I'm
every
like,
future movie that I've ever watched, though, it's always been like a desolate future.
not Back to the Future.
Yeah, but that wasn't 500 years in the future.
That's true. I mean, Doctor Who's got some cool stuff 500 years in the future. Now, but we do know what the year 3000 is like, courtesy of the Jonas Brothers. But I want to see what the year 2500 would look like.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, did you know that was a cover that the Jonas Brothers did? Year 3000, a different band from the UK wrote it and did it, and then the Jonas Brothers covered it.
And that's why I never want to live in the year 3000.
Oh, whatever. Let's do one more. Let's do one more.
All right, let's see here. Spend all day in your pajamas or spend all day in a suit. Dude, bring me the PJs.
I mean, let's just put it this way. I'm a freelance website designer who works from home. What do you think I wear most of the day?
Yeah, he's lucky he's not single or he'd be living with his mom in his PJs.
Wow. I was single for a little bit.
You had kids. It's different.
That's true. That's true. Now, I will say I actually work out of my office half the day now, so I have to shower every single day and put clothes on.
Well,
it's kind of a sad existence.
That's just because you choose to work out of the office. So you
actually no, it's not because in order
Beth
for me to
kicks you
get
out?
no because Beth's back to teaching now.
Right.
So she's full-time teacher schedule. So we have a nanny that comes in the morning, so that way I can get work because we try with just me. It's just me with 3 2-year-olds trying to keep them entertained while it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had a lot of iPad time for a little bit. They do well when we're just actually they do really well when you just throw them out. Not throw them, you sit out there with them. But when you put them outside, they just have a blast for hours. It's great. But yeah, I choose PJs.
Well, you and me both choose PJs, and
Yep.
that is 76% of people.
So
have
we live in
chosen.
now. Let's be honest. COVID put everybody in that position, anyways.
I mean, I like to get dressed up from time to time, but I mean,
But I like.
PJs is where it's at. Like, I never get it's either I'm in my work uniform all day,
Right.
or I'm sleeping. Typically on most days, or I'm going to church.
So when
And
you
so,
get
like-
home from work, do you just normally keep your work uniform on, or do you
No,
normally change into PJs and then hang out?
So typically when I get home from work, like we might go somewhere if we're not working on the house. If I'm working on the house, I go in my work clothes and I come home and I take a shower. I put a pair of shorts and a t-shirt on. I eat dinner. I play with the kids for a few minutes. I put them to bed, and then I go to bed shortly after. So that's my day.
Yep.
It's like, okay.
It is what it is.
I live for PJ days. Like, they're fun.
I miss my PJ days.
Anyways.
So this might be a good transition into the conversation, talking about COVID and everything that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, let me just turn off my iPad because
I know my iPad's off because this is a conversation. So how
Well,
does a Christian respond to the world around us?
I mean, there's a lot going. Let's review.
Yeah, let's do a review.
Let's review. All right, 2020. Right.
Oh, jeez.
Let's review 2020. So it starts off with COVID, COVID lockdowns, shutdowns. Then we have the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yep.
The hits. Right.
And then there's the multiple
and we got-
killings and
yeah,
riciots.
Right, and then we got the
protests.
cancel culture going on at the same time, although that's been going on off and on for years.
And now we have, and then the politicalization of
Then
masks and
Well, and then we had the elections coming on, and everybody with the elections, and then now we've entered into 2021, and it looked like COVID was starting to die out, and then it comes making a strong the Delta variant. Welcome back, welcome back, Mr. Cotta.
back.
And then now we've got
The Afghanistan
and Christians
should we
getting
call it a
killed,
disaster?
and I mean, it's just it's an absolute disaster, and so that's the world in the past year and a half.
No, I think this might be a fair question is, as Christians, we look at this and we're like, oh man, Jesus is coming right now. But has this the worst society has been,
I mean, as far as for modern day Americans, probably for modern day Americans,
Right, because
You know,
most
the
of us
past 50
haven't lived
years,
through World War II. We didn't,
we didn't
or
live, well, yeah, the Great Depression, even the Vietnam era,
or the rain,
great,
like the Great Chicago Fire, or I think
yeah.
there was the Great Boston Fire.
that was all back in the late 1800s, early 19
then Revolutionary War, and then you
Civil
have
War. I mean, you've got a lot
Black
of
Plague.
But in modern 50-year, if you think 50 years back, that's only putting us in the
we've had pretty
70s.
cushy lives. I mean, now granted, like when the stock market crashed, there was a lot of issues that happened with that. But I mean, this might sound selfish, but like I was in high school, and I think were you in high school or were you in college? Age?
College.
College.
I was college.
Because I think it was like middle high school, and so like I mean,
We had the September 11th.
so that was
2001.
that was awful.
That was a big deal. I mean,
it changed there.
we've had some bad moments.
I had to explain what 9/11 was to my 9-year-old daughter. She said something about like, oh yeah, I'm reading about 911. I'm like, you're reading about what? And she goes, yeah, 911, and it's in a really good book so far. I think I'm really gonna. I'm like, no, you are. It's a novel about a kid who lived through it. It's setting the stage for the attack, and she's like, I think this is gonna be so fun, and this just looks like a great book. I'm like, you.
Yeah.
Sit down, girl. I'm going to give you a history lesson. And her eyes were just getting bigger and bigger. She's like, what? I'm like, that's the book you're reading.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a rough day in history.
It's about a kid who found himself in the middle of it.
It's a rough day. I mean, fallout from that and how America changed from that and where we're at today. And I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy life that millennials have lived.
Right.
Well,
and those are those what you just relived are the facts of what have happened.
Right.
But under the skin, there's so much polarization between the right wing and the left wing politically in terms of Republican and Democrat. There's between, Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, critical race theory versus, well, if you don't agree with it, then you're a racist. Like everything is, you're either this or you're this. You're either, the party of love, or you're the party of hate, or you're the party of free will versus the party of communism. It's whatever side of the aisle you sit on, you call the other people names. And it just seems like things are getting further and further segregated. And, I think the question that I have been wrestling with is, what should a Christian do? Like you see responses about Christians posting all these things about the virus, this vaccine, that, and then, oh, well, we can still disagree and still be friends, but you're an idiot if you believe that. Like, I mean, that's the world we're living in right now.
Or if you're not social distancing and wearing masks and like all this stuff.
You're not showing brotherly love if you're not wearing a mask. But then if you wear a mask, well, then you're a sheep.
Right, yeah. Or if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. I mean, that's a whole nother ballpark that's hitting nowadays, especially in the church. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've experienced it. I'm vaccinated, and I've experienced it of like, you're just a sheep. And it's like, wait, what? Like, no, that's not why.
You're just doing the propaganda.
Let me tell you why I did it, okay? Let me just tell you why.
And then to even flip it from the other side, that people don't really know what's going on. There's such a strong trans and LGBTQ movement to and where it's becoming increasingly not safe, I want to say. And like, there's a lot of videos where it's like, well, if I use that bathroom, well, then your son or your daughter just needs to deal with it because I'm fine. You tell them to be fine. Or, one of the things that I know the Democratic Party's been pushing really hard for is transgender transferring sports, where or it's just like the fact of locker rooms and bathrooms. Like, that's been a very, very strong push lately. So it's like we're dealing with that now. So we're dealing with political, social, I want to even say faith, because now you're dealing with even churches that are fighting each other because of all this. So now all of a sudden our faith is being split. Like, when we started the podcast, we wanted to have conversation about faith, culture, and society. And I feel like this conversation it looks like the world's going to hell in a handbasket.
This is as raw as it's going to get, because we are not prepared for any of this conversation.
This is an actual conversation. This is going back to our Starbucks days and just going, dude, what the heck do we do?
I think, so we're looking at it and we're like, man, this is horrible. Like, Christ's got to be coming soon. And I think back of the early church, and that's probably what they thought too. I mean, just look at the persecution that they went through. Most of the books in the New Testament were written to churches that were under heavy scrutinized persecution,
either by Rome with Nero.
Well, either by Rome or Judaizers, or they were just getting hit from all sides. It was no safe place. It's not like they could run to Israel and be like, we're safe here because Israel is, a safe place of us being able to practice, especially because that's where our Savior came from. And it's like, no, they hated you. They're pretty bad. And then it's like, okay, well, let me run off. Well, then certain Judaizers would meet up with Christians in other cities in Rome, and there'd be fighting going on in there. And then Rome stepped in, would kick them out of the city and banish them from the city. And then you got Nero, like you started talking about. Nero started to be like, okay, well, Christians burn it down. Let's get them. So, just thinking about our early church fathers and what they went through, and even like, they're like, yeah, but they never had to deal with the black or with the COVID or any type of disease. Well, they had Black Plague and everything that they dealt with in the Renaissance periods.
Well, we also live in a very clean culture,
right?
Like back then, like the rich were clean. Sure, there was public bathhouses for, again, in the big cities for the rich people, but it's like they had to wash their feet every time they walked into a house.
Well, yeah, because just walking was
we
have
get refrigerators for crying out loud.
Yeah,
I
mean, I think the church has been through this type of stuff before. I'm not saying this exact thing, but these types of things, and that I'm sure that they thought at the time. I know for sure just from some of the writings that the early church believed that Christ was soon to return. I mean, look, how many times did the apostles say Christ is at hand, the time is at hand, his return is at hand.
The kingdom is here. And then First Thessalonians, Paul even, like the church was just, they were quitting their jobs and they were just chilling, being like, Jesus, I'm going to sit on my Walgreens beach chair and just hang out for a little bit until you show up.
Yeah, and Paul had to go, don't do that.
Yeah, get your butt back working because you don't work, you don't eat.
Yeah, like he's sure. I'm sure even Paul believed that he was returning soon, but don't just sit around and do nothing and wait for him. And so, I mean, how many times throughout history we thought at the 1999 to 2000, Christ is coming back, Y2K. There's been so many times the church has been like, Christ is coming back, Christ is coming back. And I don't think that Christ wants us just sitting on our hands, just like Paul said in First Thessalonians. What is the church supposed to be doing in these times? Well, I think we're supposed to be doing what we always should be doing, being ambassadors of Christ, carrying out the word of God to people and loving people. Like that's our calling.
And part of that was we're supposed to be agents of reconciliations. But in a world that's constantly split, where we are, we have a liberty as Americans that the early church never did. Like you didn't get to speak your opinion.
Yeah, right.
Or you could, but ain't gonna do nothing.
Or you were just uneducated. You didn't know any better. I mean, in the early church, you just didn't.
Right. And so COVID, we're bored, we're on our phones all the time, and that caused more division. And us being behind computers, I think, have emboldened people because people will say things on a keyboard you'll never say to someone's face.
That's why they're cyber bullies.
Right, exactly. And, goodness. But if we're supposed to be ambassadors for Christ, are we allowed to have opinions on politics? Are we allowed to post things on Facebook about, this person talks about this about the vaccine. Well, this person talks about this. Oh, our campus is this percent vaccinated. Oh, you mean your campus is
sheep
or a bunch of science experiments?
So I think this is where you have to remember who you represent. Depending on what I think, go ahead, go post stuff on the internet. Go say stuff, speak your opinion, but remember,
but it seems like every time you post, you're pulling people away.
Well, so you gotta remember who you represent, right? So what's Christ? Is what you're doing being divisive? Are you being a divisive spirit, or are you being a unifying spirit of the church?
But right now, you can't do anything without being a divine spirit. Like I'm thinking of people who post things on Facebook all the time, where it's like I do know some people who they go to our church where they'll have different opinions than me, but I've never once felt judged by it. It was more of just like, that's fair that you think that. It's what I think. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. Yeah. But I'm not, going at you either.
You're not being divisive. You're not going out looking for a battle because they differ from you. It's funny because we look at Proverbs in the church. We always look at Proverbs as a book of wisdom, and Proverbs talks about that you don't always have to answer a fool. Like you don't always have to give an answer to a fool.
Can I just say I hate that verse? Answer a fool lest he appears wise in his own mind. Don't answer a fool unless you look like a fool too. I'm like, no. Then he appears wise in his own eyes, and I'm like, that doesn't help.
So I think it deals with a lot of pride, though. It's don't speak as the fool. Don't speak like the fool, saying okay, and getting into these arguments of battle of opinions.
Yeah, but if that person is a fool, you need to shut them down unless they look wise in their own eyes. Like that's where people, I think, struggle.
There's a way to do it though, and it's the spirit behind it. What are you doing? Are you doing it to prove them wrong, or are you doing it to actually help them? And I think that's what that scripture talks about.
Right.
And I think that's where people misunderstand it. Is I have to tell them the truth, and the truth will set them free. But is it the truth? And really, is that truth going to help them or hurt them? And the way you come across, is it a better conversation to have over the internet, or is it a better conversation to have in person?
And okay, is that part of it? Is it more the fact of, when you're sitting across from the table from somebody who disagrees with you, I'm talking to a real person, not just throwing my opinion out there for everybody to hear.
There's a reason why we're told to bridle our tongues, and that how much our tongues, what does it say? What is it? It's something about if you bridle your tongue, you'll control the whole body or something like that.
Yeah, James, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so true.
We had a podcast episode about taming the tongue.
Right, and it's so true. It's if we learn to control our mouth, it'd probably get us in a lot less trouble. And And then I hear people going, well, they don't bridle their tongue, so why should I have to bridle mine? Well,
and they need to be put in their place.
They also do a sin. Should you go about sinning, that grace may abound? God forbid.
Right.
I can go back and forth and say this too. I think it's beyond that. I think that we are told to correct those, right, that need correcting and that are sinning, and there's a certain way we're supposed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if what they're saying is just an opinion, is it causing them to sin? Should we have to correct it? Or can it just be their opinion? Can it be just, okay, that's the way you feel? That's fine. I can't tell you how many times I've read stuff on Facebook and I felt like, oh, they're wrong, but I didn't feel like, oh, I need to put them in their place.
Mm-hmm.
Because why? What good is it going to do? It's going to be divisive, and it's just going to be a battle of opinions that never go anywhere. And then there's times that I've disagreed and I've jumped into it, and guess what? It got us nowhere because it didn't change their beliefs and it didn't change my beliefs. All it did was create feelings against each other. So I think if certain conversations, certain opinions, I don't think it's a good thing to have over social media. I think that's a face-to-face conversation. Plus, you can't read body language. You can't see tonal inflections and
right.
stuff like
It's just it's words on a screen. You read your own voice into it.
Exactly.
But but I think about all these things that are going on, and it's like as Americans, we have been given much. We've been given the freedom to have opinions and voices.
Mm-hmm.
I think the issue that I have though is when people use the words like idiot, stupid, or whatever, just because someone voted for the opposite party doesn't.
Sheep.
Yeah, or worse, or I'm not sure what the other side would be, but it's basically just I don't know. It's whatever the negative term would be for the other side, but it's lost my train of thought. Oh, but like with these things, like we have the ability to have opinions, which cause further dissension. But if we believe we're doing the right thing, does it matter what people think? Like if we're fighting for, America actually has in our Constitution that if our government acts tyrannical, we actually are given the right by our forefathers to rise up against the government. Is that actually good? I mean, that's the way the American system was created, and we happen to find ourselves in this American system.
I see Paul uses his rights as a Roman
Mm-hmm.
for certain reasons, and then doesn't use his right as a Roman for other reasons.
Right. And the one time he used it was because they wrongfully threw him in prison. He goes, I'm a Roman citizen, so you had no right to do this to me.
And as soon as he says that, then he has an automatic right to go see Caesar at that point. Caesar judges it. So,
And he used it to further the gospel witness, not just his opinion. And is it the fact that we live in a place where, we have technology at our fingertips, we have information overload. Like I actually heard a really interesting theory that we were never created to take in more information than what was in our local tribes, because right now, some people have been struggling with how hard it is to get a hold of me, or how hard it is to hang out with me and the family and other things like that. And I'm like,
it's almost impossible.
it's like, okay, so I have 7 kids that need to see their dad.
Right.
I can barely keep up with them.
You're a newlywed.
I'm a newlywed. I have my own business.
Right.
I have a house that I'm working on.
You're a podcast host.
And I'm a podcaster. And that's just it. I'm like, okay, so if you look at every single night, okay, so if we take away podcast night, we take away church night, usually Saturdays are, projects at the house or whatever. All the other nights I'm doing homework every single night with these kids. Right. And by the time I put them to bed, I fell asleep at 9:15 twice last week.
Welcome to my world.
Right. And so it's like, it's the thing where it's like, I can barely keep up with my own family, let alone everything else that's going on.
I get it, man.
I
totally understand it. So I work a swing shift, multiple, more than 40 hours working on a house, taking care of 3 kids.
And trying to, we barely can hang out.
We don't hang out outside of podcasting. We really don't.
We really don't. And we tried, and it's so hard.
It's too busy right
schedules.
now. And I mean, how much of it is self-inflicted, and how much could, we prioritize.
You always make room for what's priorities. But even for Beth and I, it's more the fact of if we hang out with a friend, we'll text, hey, we're available now, not now, but like next Tuesday. Are you guys? No, okay. Well, I guess we'll have to wait another month.
You can make time, and right now, you and Beth and Janelle and I have our priorities. I think right. It's God, it's family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's immediate family. You got to take care of the needs and care for them, and not just physical needs, but spiritual needs. And it's part of it. I mean, so, but in this, so I get, the texting and stuff. You and I try to text at least once a week. Typically it's talking about podcast stuff, but at least we're texting.
It's true. It's true.
But, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to balance what is appropriate social media conversation and community and what's not. And we are probably the busiest generation out of all generations.
Yeah, lean into that a bit.
Because when is there a time where we just have to sit, that we don't have a device on, that we're not interacting with something? We're constantly interacting.
I walk out to the garage and I flip open Instagram.
Shoot, even going to sleep, I turn on Adventures in Odyssey, or I turn on Disney Plus to go to sleep with. So I'm constantly having something until I go pass out. I basically
I do that with Madam Secretary. Yeah,
going till I pass out, and then I wake up and start it all again. And for me, most of the time it's at 3:30 in the morning. I'm starting my day, and it's like go.
Yeah, and I mean,
we're
by
always
the
on
time
the go.
I wake up and I got kids talking at me at 6 a.m. when I'm trying to make lunches, and then by the time all the kids leave, I go lay on the couch with the babies, and I either fall asleep or I'm on my phone trying to get the Buster to go shower and get ready for the day. Yeah. And yeah, it's hard.
But going back to what Christians are supposed to do in this world.
And I know right now we're mainly talking about political and COVID stuff.
So, you mentioned a couple things. You said the idiot, stupid things, people
being
saying
kind
that.
with our words, yeah.
So I just think about the early church again. Christian was not this is a good badge of honor to wear. It was a derogatory term that the Jews and Romans put on Christians. It was meant to be a put down. It was meant to be like the equivalent of sheep.
Right. It's like, you guys are Christians. You follow this dead Messiah.
Right. And so, I mean, we can't control what people do. I can't control what you say. You can't control what I say.
Nope. I can only control what I say.
Right. And so what should we do in these situations? And I'm speaking specifically to the name calling on social media, because most of the time people aren't brave enough to name call to your face. And I don't think you have to necessarily say anything. Sometimes it's just let the fool be the fool. And sometimes when the fool is hurting somebody else, or the fool is influencing, it's like the false teacher conversation you and me and Soche had. It's like, when do you step in and speak out against a false teacher?
Oh, not Soche. Rodney Buse.
I know, but Soche and I 2 years ago had a Facebook conversation.
Oh yeah.
Back.
Goodness, that's going back.
It's like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So, and we said that, okay,
I remember that now.
When is the time to step in and say, all right, this is enough? And we all came to the conclusion that it's when it's influencing others. And I think it's the same way of, when do you call out a fool? When they're harming other people, basically, then we should step in and defend other people.
Right, but this is where I struggle with, is because, I don't think it's wrong for Christians to be involved in government, because Daniel was involved in government. So if you have these people who are, either right-wing or left-wing, because I'm friends with both on Facebook, and they're posting stuff that completely contrary to the other person, right. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, no, they're idiots. They believe this. No, you just don't love people enough.
That's what it is. They don't know how to bridle their tongue, and they don't love anybody.
So do you think people should be allowed to, and not people should be allowed, that's not the right thing. More of, like, can Christians post their opinions on things on social media? Like, is there anything wrong with that?
What's the purpose behind it?
To educate people, because those fools need to not be communists and be free, or those people need to, love somebody and put on a mask.
But why do you have to educate them?
I don't post that stuff.
I'm just saying in general.
No. Right.
Why do you have to? Like, not you, but you in general. Like, why
people need to be educated, and I got the abilities and the voice to do it.
So at what point does it become actual lovingly want to educate people and pridefully want to educate people? But I think
people want to lovingly. It's the fact of, like, we don't want you to shoot that vaccine in your bike because bad, or it's like, we want you to because the virus is bad. But both are coming from good perspectives.
But here's where you can see the sheep from the wolves. So I'm going to give two illustrations.
Way to bring the sheep back into it.
One person posts, "Hey, don't drink honey. I'm gonna throw something that's not politically energized right now.
Okay, so don't be Winnie the Pooh and don't
eat honey.
Okay,
and honey causes cancer. I'm saying the most ridiculous thing that comes to my head. And the person goes, honey doesn't cause cancer. Honey cures cancer. And that person comes back and goes, well, you're a sheep because you're just following the crowd. Now, are they really trying to educate
No,
out of love, or is
that's
that
bully?
or
That's
they,
actually bully tactic.
So then we get the second person. They say, "Hey, don't eat honey because it causes cancer," and that person goes, "Hey, no, honey doesn't cause cancer. Actually, not eating honey causes cancer, and so you need to eat honey." And they go, "Okay, here's the articles that I had that I came to my conclusion." And leave it at that. Look at it if you want, or don't look at it, and leave it at that. There's no name calling. There's, hey, this is where I got my information from. You read it for yourself. And then that's it. There's no back and forth. There's no name calling. There's no you're stupid or I know more than you, or there's none of that. This is just I'm presenting the facts of where I got my information from, and I'm leaving it because that's that's a loving education right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's not slapping people around with it. That's not going back saying you're an idiot or you're just a sheep or any of that stuff. There's a huge difference. Now, let's bring it back to the real world now. So, COVID vaccine, right? There's two sides of the fence. Either you are going to die because you're an idiot because you got it, or you're going to get it because you're trying to protect yourself and others.
Mm-hmm.
Which one's more loving? Which one sounds more loving, right? Just in that general statement. I'm not saying take the vaccine or not take the vaccine, but which one
It's the one that loves the neighbor the most.
The one that loves, right? I'm doing this out of love. Like for me, personally, that's why I got the COVID vaccine, because if there's a chance that I can help not spread it to my fellow brothers or bring it home to my wife or children or my in-laws or my parents or my brothers or my church family, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I take it? Why wouldn't I try to do something? Why wouldn't I wear a mask? If a mask has a small chance of protecting somebody, it may be a 1% chance, but that 1% of not spreading something to somebody, to me, is worth it because it's showing love.
But how do we handle that with our kids? Because it's like the mask, it's actually changing kids' brain paths.
So that's, to me, it's a little different with kids, all right? So I'm not for, personally, all right? This is just me personally. I don't make my kids wear the mask.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I think it should be everybody's decision whether they want to wear the mask or not in a mask situation. And a child doesn't have that choice. And so me as a parent, because I'm not a research person and I'm not a doctor, I'm going to say, all right, if they have to wear a mask, then I just won't go to those places because I'm the one making the choice whether to go or not.
Right.
And I don't have to, well, what about the grocery store? People said that they got to wear them. No, you don't, because you can get groceries delivered. You can get pickup orders. There's no have to as you want to. Now, there's a difference.
But they're taking away my freedom.
But what about church? Well, we all live stream now.
Right, but that's where it's hard because if this is where the struggle is, that they're saying like, well, if masks don't do anything, that's actually unloving to make people wear masks. But that's where I struggle.
But so, okay.
And I'm saying on one side, I wrestle with it hard.
So here's my thing. Prior to COVID-19, right?
Okay.
Prior to COVID-19, when you were sick and you went to the hospital, the doctor would go, hey, can you put on a mask so you don't spread your germs? Or, hey, when you sneeze or cough, can you put your face into your arm?
Yeah.
And people do it,
no
right?
question.
Right.
No question.
It was,
and I've done it, yeah.
You know what? I don't want to spread my germs because I don't want people to get sick because of me. Like, it's one of those things. So nobody had a problem with it before this, but now everybody's a medical and research expert. I get the distrust. I do, right?
And honestly,
politics and certain individuals of the medical community have made it seem very untrustworthy what's going on right now.
Yeah, no question.
And I'm not saying one way or the other, and I'm not trying to give it. I'm just saying, think about these things. I get that it's untrusting, but we used to do these things and not question it. We used to trust our doctor, right? I have a relationship with my personal doctor, and so I trust his opinion because I've been seeing him for years before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So I trust what he has to say. So what is your doctor saying? What's the people you know? I know people in the medical field, and that's where I get my information from because I trust them. And if they say, okay, this or that, I'm going to go, okay, well, I'm not in that field. I don't read the medical journals. I didn't go to school for researching, infectious diseases. I don't have these degrees. I don't have a microscope. I'm not in these fields looking at these things. So who do I trust? Mm-hmm. Do I trust myself and the internet? Because if I trust myself, I know I don't have it. If I trust the internet, I know the internet is full of lies. It has truths, but it's full of lies too. So how do I know I'm not getting a lie?
Mm-hmm. And that's where I struggle, you know, and it's like, I found this, someone shared, I thought it was really cool. It's like, believe it or not, it's okay to be all three.
Yeah.
Option one is believe COVID
Right.
is real,
Right.
thinks that everyone has a right to wear a mask or not, is certain that COVID is being used for political purposes and public control. Yeah.
I believe them all too.
Right.
I'm totally on board with that.
But this is where it's hard is, you know, I feel like so many Christians, you know, I mean, you know me, I'm connected with so many people who are Gen Z. And so many Gen Zers are like, if this is what Christians in the church are like, I don't want to be any part of this.
Well, so here's my
you
thing.
know, and that's where I struggle.
Here's my thing with adults, right? You know, you got people who go, oh, you can't wear masks because masks kill people from lack of oxygen and all this. And I'm like, well, where's that medical proof? Because I watch surgeons who for years...
My grandma had to wear one.
Surgeons for years have worn them for 8+ hours at a time doing surgeries every single day with no issues. For years, and you trusted them to do the surgery on you. So, and I don't mean to make this all about mask or not mask. I'm just saying, like,
but that's right now. That is the hot topic issue.
Let's look at it logically. Well, logically, that surgeons and doctors and have been doing this for years, anyways, wearing masks. But now all of a sudden they're hurting you. I'm just not. I don't understand that.
Right.
And to me, if my brother's weaker in faith, right, say, oh, you have little faith, you should trust that the COVID virus isn't going to hurt you, blah, 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 and that you don't need to wear a mask. Well, my brother over here believes that it is going to hurt them, and they are at a higher risk medically and this and that, and so they're scared, and for good reason they're scared, and
I had people who were like that.
They want people to wear a mask so they can fellowship with you. What's more loving? Saying, well, screw you, you're just a sheep, and I'm only caring about myself because I don't want to wear a mask, or I'll put the mask on for them.
But I've heard so many other arguments. Like I remember when Matt Walsh recently walked up into that. I'm sure I don't know if you saw that video actually. Matt Walsh, he's from the Daily Wire. He talks way faster than me. But so he went to a teachers meeting and basically came up with all these facts and basically and so he's like, here's all the facts, here's all the things. At the end of the day, you're forcing my kid to wear a mask for something that doesn't affect them. It hasn't proven, and they've even shown that kids not being able to see their teacher's face or their kid's face is actually legitimately changing their brainwaves because they're not able to process emotions.
But then I look back at the early 1900s where they had the outbreak,
the gas masks,
and they wore masks. They wore masks, and it's amazing how people weren't. So, are we just as a society psychologically weaker? Or is it really not that big of a problem? And yes, some researchers are saying it, but it's not extensive enough data because really none of the data we have about this thing or about how masks affect people really is enough of a study over a year to prove anything.
So my question is, why can't we be both? If people, and this is where it's hard. It's the fact of why can't some people wear masks, some people don't. And then even there, when our local school here, Penn High School had that mandate where it's like, okay, we're gonna leave it up to the parents,
right?
And the students, if you want your kid to, and I'm not going to say it, but the school that Beth teaches at, there's a kid in her class, and her parents are like, we want her to wear a mask. They're part of the medical community, and so Beth is like, yeah, we'll make sure she does that. And even though she's like, it's so hard to watch this one little kid who she hates it, she doesn't want to do it.
What's more detrimental,
right? But with these things now, it's like these. Administrators are trying to do the best they can. They say, okay, well, if parents want their kids to wear masks, you can, or if teens want to wear masks, you can. But if you don't want to, you don't have to.
That's the same thing our churches do.
But people are flipping the crap out because they're like, well, you're still causing the spread, and you're the reason why my grandma. Whoa, hold up. And then there's the other side where it's like, oh, you're still wanting people to wear this thing that doesn't do crap. I don't know.
But think of that person that their grandma died, right?
Right. They're dealing with true emotional trauma.
Heck yeah, they are. They're really struggling. Looking at my in-laws, I thought for sure my in-laws were going to die of COVID because they were so sick. They were both hospitalized. My father-in-law is still not home yet. I mean, for people that say it's no big deal, it is a big deal for some people. It can kill some people. I've watched it kill several of my fellow employees at work. Mm-hmm. Guys who were otherwise healthy before they got it.
And like how old? Like
50s.
But still.
I mean, that's like your mom getting it and dying. Mm-hmm. How would you feel? Would you think it's a joke?
No, and that's why this is what's hard is like there's a pastor right now. I was reading this just this morning actually. A pastor is actually setting up a free COVID shot clinic at the church because they lost 10 members.
Right.
But he's getting flacked like you wouldn't believe, even in his denomination.
My job is actually paying people to go get vaccinated. They're saying, hey, listen, we think it's important. The medical community around the world is saying that it works a little bit better. It protects us a little bit. Maybe not fully, keeps us from getting it, but it helps us at least not be as sick and die. So they're like, we'll pay you if you.
And there's so much and I think the thing we're dealing with is there's just so many conspiracy theories on how it all works.
Well, and they're like, oh yeah, the conspiracy theory is going to go. Well, see, they got to pay you to take it because it's going to kill you.
It's not going to. They want to control you.
You're going to die to 3 to 5 years and blah blah blah. And I'm going to be like, if it's I'm not going to die before my appointed time. That's what I know. Whether it's COVID, whether it's a vaccine, whether it's me leaving tonight and getting in a car accident, I don't know. And why fret myself with it? What I am concerned about is how I represent the Lord. Mm-hmm. And is me taking a stand on not wearing a mask, and if we boil it down, it's just simply because I don't want to. It's got come on, let's break it down here. It's got nothing to do with whether, it's going to hurt me or hurt, whatever, or my freedom. If you look in the very beginning of all this, it was all about I'm American. It's my right. I don't have to wear a mask. That's infringement on my freedom. That's all it was about. It was about my pride of who I am and being an American. It had nothing to do with anything else. And then they go, oh, well, we're getting quite a bit of flack and getting called Karen for that. So now let's make something else up about it. It's like listen, it's not hurting you. All right. People have worn masks forever. and with no ill effects on them. So you can't sit here and tell me in the past year wearing a mask is killing people now. Because China's been doing it for years.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Asian cultures, yeah.
All the time.
I think it's more the fact of, is it, if it's not, if there's no purpose, then and there is, because, we've even seen flu and pneumonia cases go down too.
Right.
And this is just where it's hard. And I know we've been chatting a lot about mainly COVID and mask and the Delta and whatnot.
It's the hot topic right now.
It is a hot topic, but I'm even thinking now, like the shift. If you don't, are you okay if I shift gears?
Shift
we don't have too much time, but I'm thinking my opinion. I think the next dividing issue. I'm not prophesying, and I'm just saying I think this is what's going to be. Is what do we do with all these Afghan refugees? Right. Do we allow them into America? No, because they don't fit our culture, and they're going to bomb it. What? Hold on. And are we supposed to? Where are we supposed to locate all these people who are literally running for their life? Like they're humping onto the landing gears of planes to escape, and then they would rather plummet thousands of feet to their death, rather than live where they live.
Well, no, typically they're not plummeting to their death. They're probably dead of lack of oxygen before then.
Well, it's true, but they're just trying to do all they can.
Right.
And so it's like, what do we do with these refugees? There's going to be people where it's like, we can't let them in here because we ain't got room for them, and there's a different culture, and they're bringing Islam over here, and they're going to ruin our...
It comes back down to the same thing with the COVID situation. The same thing with the Black Lives Matter situation. It all boils into one, for Christians, it should anyways, of what is love?
What does love require? I think that's a good question. What does love require of me?
Proper love is sacrificial. And
which means it hurts.
I think, like with the Afghan refugees, right? I think there should be a screening. Why? Because I would hate to see us let just a murderer or murderers or rapists in here and hurt more people. So I think there needs to be a proper screening. But if they pass the screening, let them in.
But how long is that going to take? And can we do background checks on them? And can we do all these reference checks?
We have to do what we can to protect other people. It's like a church, right? If you have a church that breaks up,
okay,
say it's a charismatic church, and they're all wanting to come to your Baptist church now. Well, there should be a proper screening.
I'd let you come into the church, but you wouldn't be leading anything.
No, before you join the church, right? Scott does a screening before you can join the church.
These are our beliefs.
He screened Janelle and I. Mm-hmm. When were you baptized? What do you believe? How do you obtain salvation? These different things. It's a basic screen, but he's screening us. Why? It's protecting the flock. And I think that's okay. I'm okay with the screening process.
And we should say that's also America's leaders' responsibility to take care of our country. That's
correct.
Fair.
Well, and it's to care for the people in the country, right? Because we can't displace people in our country just because there's other people being displaced, because that's not caring for our people.
Right.
So I think It's not. I think we always look at it as black and white. It's got to be we accept
And
them or we
that's
don't
what I'm
accept
saying.
them.
I think that's going to be the next polarization
I
argument is what do we do with all these refugees?
Well, and I don't think it's either or. It's just like mask. I don't think wear a mask, not wear a mask. I think that's somewhere in the middle. For a Christian, I wear the mask. I wear my mask around people that believe that you should wear masks. And when
out of respect for them.
out of respect and love for them. And out of people that don't believe it, well, then I don't wear my mask. That's the way I operate. It's out of love for that
and that's
person.
why I actually carry my mask in my backpack with me wherever I go.
I carry
'Cause I don't know
masks.
what's going to happen. I mean, I can walk in a coffee shop. They're like, "Oh, we're requesting you guys wear masks now." Cool.
Both my vehicles have masks in them.
Yep.
And I'm fully vaccinated. So half the time
ours don't because we washed them, and I think we put them away. But we got to get it back.
No,
but
I mean,
anywho.
right. But like at my job right now, right?
Okay.
So I'm vaccinated. So I'm not required to wear my mask. I'm not required to. Yet I wear my mask around people that feel like masks are important. Why? Because I'm a witness to them. They're not even a Christian brother, but it's me showing love to them. And guess what? You get respect out of that from them, and they're more apt to listen to you because they see that you actually care. You're putting your money where your mouth is type of thing. Your actions behind what you say. And actions speak louder than words. If I say, Jesus loves you, but guess what? I'm not wearing my mask around you because I don't have to.
Right. Or it doesn't do anything, and you just need to get
You're just a sheep. Well, they're going to be like, yeah, okay, well, I'm definitely not listening to you because I'm just a sheep. Which
is funny because Jesus calls us sheep.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty funny. But these are the type of things that Christians should be looking at. I'm okay with refugees coming into our country.
But it's our authorities' job to make sure that they're protecting the citizens that are already here.
Correct. Exactly. There's definitely a gray area that has to be looked at. It can't be black or white. There's a mask gray area. It can't be black or white. There's Black Lives Matter. All lives matter. Black. There's not a black and white. There's a gray area in there. Like I agree with both sides, and I disagree with parts of both sides. Like there is a middle ground that I think that. We live in a world of extremes. It's this way or that way.
And I feel like COVID has made it even worse because now we're bored at home on our phones.
That's just divisive. It's just divided everybody. And the entire world is divided. So I think that the challenge that has been set before us, the church needs to rise to meet the challenge. And that's to love people through it. I think of the Black Plague, right? The most deadly thing, most people, if they got it 3-4 days, they were dead. Right? This is back 1800s or whatever it was. What was the church?
They were in the middle of all the crap.
They said, well, the most loving thing to do is to give my life for a friend or a brother, right? So if I get sick and die, well, it's the Lord's time for me. So I'm going to be there to love that person and take care of him.
In the middle of the Holocaust, that's what Dietrich Bonhoeffer did. He could have stayed in America and hid, but he's like, I need to be with my people.
Right.
So he went back to Germany.
Exactly. So, I mean,
he died in concentration camp because of it.
This is so much of the church's history has always been, well, I can't be on the outside of this, and I can't pick one side or the other. I got to be in the middle of it.
We like to be comfy. And there was a quote that Scott said a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I don't know. It was the fact of, as Christians, we like to stay in our comfort zone because once we step outside of our comfort zone, that means we can't do it on our own and we need God to do it. Whereas if we stay in our comfort zone, that means we don't need God to do it because we can do it.
Well, through church history, through Israel's history, I've never seen a good, comfy time where everything was great and gravy. Typically, if you're in a comfy time, there's a really hard time coming very soon.
Right, and this is just different. Like, World War II, World War I, Civil War. There's always actual bloodshed wars.
Yeah.
And right now, we might not be shedding blood. I mean, now we are over in Afghanistan, but at least here in America, it's not so much about blood. But now there's a war happening in our culture.
And the church, rather than being divisive and dividing against each other, should learn to love each other and love each other where they're at. Because guess what? Christ loves us where we're at, and we're definitely not always right. And yet he still loves us. And though we disagree, we can still love each other and be respectful. I can respectfully have a different opinion than you, Mark. Did you know that? It's amazing.
Shut up.
It's amazing.
And we have some.
And we actually have quite a few, which the podcast has brought out.
But even with those, we haven't had a lot recently, but if we start talking about house church versus like what's the biblical model for church, what's the biblical model for this, we have disagreements.
Yep.
That doesn't mean you're wrong and it does mean you're wrong and I'm right because I'm right. But
I love you.
I'm totally kidding. But the fact of I have valid points and you have valid points, and that's what the Bible says, let each man be convinced in his own mind.
Right.
However,
And got to work out the right in the end.
That doesn't negate our ability to, out of love, what does love require? And but I think this is where I keep going back with my struggle of, and this is where I think some Christians are falling into, a lot of them, where the fact of, I am lovingly telling you, don't get the vaccine because of this. And then it just turns into war.
Right.
And so the fact of, they say, what does love require? Well, love requires saying the hard right thing, even though it goes against the culture, you know?
Here's where I'm at,
Okay.
right? Truth, right? I believe I have truth. You believe you have truth. And the truths do not match.
Right. So what do we do when we do that?
I think love says truth, what they believe, right? If I believe truth is, I'm going to say truth, and love would say, I'm going to say truth once. And if they don't listen, they don't listen.
Well, I mean, what was that? 1 Corinthians 13, love hopes all things, bears all things,
Endures all things.
endures all things, endures.
Yeah. So if I say, hey, lovingly, the vaccine's going to kill you, Mark, I really would hate to see that.
And I would say, okay.
And then you say, okay, right? Because you're going to bridle your tongue and not give your opinion.
Or
Which is fine.
or you just say, okay, well,
You know how many times there's been somebody that spoke their opinion, and I have a different opinion, and I'm just like,
it's like, okay, thanks for sharing.
I have a guy I work with who's a devout Catholic, and he was talking about Mariology and all this stuff just this past week, and I just lovingly sat there with him, and then I said, hey, can I pray with you afterwards? That was the conversation.
And it's not wrong to ask questions, and if they ask your opinion, sure.
But you don't always have to give your opinion back, right? Sometimes you can just accept it, and if you differ, that's fine. And likewise, you have to be able to just say, all right, I'm going to speak truth, and I'm not going to argue about it. When did we see God argue, or Christ argue about truth with the Pharisees? Not very often. Only when they asked questions that he answered the question, but he never sat there back. And
he called them, you brood of vipers, you whitewashed tomb. So he, and that's the thing, is the fact
he called out truth.
But here's the deal. But people think that they have the truth. So if Jesus can call people whitewashed tombs, why can't I call you this?
Well, because you're not Jesus.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like, but we're supposed to emulate and follow him. I think that's where but I think that's where the big, I just whacked my ring on the table.
But why?
I think that's where the big struggle that people have are, you know?
But what's your heart behind wanting to call them broods of vipers? And what's your heart behind wanting to chase them out of the temple with whips and all this stuff? What's your heart behind it? Because that's where it's at. And typically, and if everybody's honest with themselves, 9.9 times out of 10, it's because I'm offended and my pride is hurt, is why I'm saying
and
it.
Jesus went after people because they were leading them astray down the wrong path towards God, not towards society.
Not towards a medical, scientific thing, or it was always towards God, and it was like way off. Like it was, they knowingly led people astray.
So let's land this plane a little bit. This went a lot longer than I thought it was going to.
Heck yeah, it did. Like twice as long as I thought.
But this is the conversation. So it's like, okay, so as Christians, it's okay to have different opinions.
Sure.
But when is it okay to post something on Facebook because you want to post it versus not versus respond? I mean, Scott went off on people. I don't know, you weren't at church this past Sunday about the comment feeds for Facebook. Just get out of them because that's being divisive.
Really?
Like he was like,
really
because the mark of the Christian is love for one another and love for all people. Like that's the marks of the Christian. Well, obviously love God, but love God and love others. Like that's the mark of a Christian.
Yep.
The world will know you by your love for one another.
Right.
What does love require of
Not in
you?
the comment feed, I can tell you that.
Right. And I think we have to we each have to be convinced in our mind, okay, this is what I believe. This is what our family is. Now, granted, I think we're going to see a big war between certain places where it's like, well, if you're going to be here, you have to wear masks, which this is capitalism at its finest, where it's like, all right, I won't go to your establishment. I'll just go to a different one. There's other ones.
And guess what? That's called freedom of being an American.
Right.
There you go. You can choose not to go there.
So many people are so worried that it's like, well, these communists are just coming in and we're going to lose all that freedom if we don't do something.
Now, I think it shows the state, if we bring it back to the church. So a church says, all right, if you want to come here, you got to wear a mask. Got to wear a mask. And we're doing it because of love for the people
who are actually struggling
with it, and that's what it's about. And you go, well, I'm not going to go there because I don't want to wear a mask. Well, then that just shows that you truly don't love your brothers that are struggling. To me, that's what it shows. That's what it screams, is that you care more about yourself than you do about your brother.
So does that mean a pastor is unloving if he doesn't make people wear masks? But that's the problem. Like, that's the issue that I'm having with
I think Scott did the perfect thing.
If you want to wear one, wear one.
If you want,
don't.
Exactly.
Now, he did say we do everything out of love and respect.
Correct.
So so even on our church signs, they say we do not require a mask, but we request that you respect other people's space and decisions.
If they're wearing a mask, then stay 6 feet apart. And if you go near them, put a mask on for them. Like, that's part of the love. Though it's not required, it's part of loving them.
Like, we have people in our church who still have not recovered from COVID when it first came out.
Well, we still have people in our church that have not returned to the church, or were going to the first service because of the mask, and now that we're not, they're not coming back. I know, because I just talked to one. And you know, it's sad because we're not supposed to go through this life alone. And it's sad that they cannot feel, because they struggle with it and they feel in danger because of COVID and no mask, that they don't feel like they can be a part of our church.
But should the entire church do that, or do we say...
Well, what's the loving thing to do?
I still think it's fair to say if you don't want to wear one, just don't. But if you do. But if someone says, well, that I just can't come to church, that's when you say, well, we love you, but this is a decision we have to make for this body.
And that's and you have to have that. But I'm just saying, as a whole church, what's the push behind it? What's the push behind it? What's the heart behind it? Do you truly believe masks hurt you, or you just don't want to wear them?
And it's a valid question.
Because if you ask me, if I don't want to wear a mask, it's because I just don't want to wear it. It's not because I believe that it hurts me. And I mean, that's where my personal landing is on it.
And for me, I guess with the church, it's the fact of, I don't think a church, if a church says our community will wear a mask, respect it. Right. But if a church says you wear one if you want, don't wear one if you don't want to. There's like one person in the church. Well, it's hard because it's like you can't run an entire church based off of one person's
I totally
interest, and so you would have to lovingly say
you got to find the balance.
You got to lovingly say, I understand that's hard, but this is the decision that we believe is best for our church community.
And you have to look.
But then there's other churches who haven't shut down once. They still don't wear masks, and that's what they believe is best for their community.
But
so
just realize the church should be in mourning right now because we're divided over this. We should be in mourning. We should be in ashes and sackcloth as an entire church right now because we are divisive on this. And if we're divided on this, how can we be entrusted with the keys to the kingdom? How could we say we're the bride of Christ that's ready for Christ's return? Because obviously we're not ready for Christ's return. We're not a bride that's perfect and spotless. I mean, we can't even love each other, let alone love the world. Where are we as a church? I mean, something simple as a mask, a piece of paper over your face. We're going to split over that. Wow. The church is in a sad state. We are in a sad state, and the church needs to repent.
But I think there's a difference between we're split between masks versus this. This is the outpouring we have. Like,
no, if you look at the majority of churches, they are fighting over masks. There is quarrelsome arguments and name calling over mask. I'm talking I'm not talking Southside. I'm talking church as a whole.
Right.
That's where we're at as a church. We're not unified. It's a sad state, and that the church as a whole, the whole church worldwide, needs to repent of it. We need to repent and quit being so petty and refocus. We had those focus podcasts. We need to refocus on what the goal actually is, and that's love and taking Christ to others. That's what our focus should always be.
Yeah, and even on this conversation, I think how we both think churches should respond are different.
Yeah,
I think how you and I see it are a little different, but I think we both are asking the same question of what does love require us to do?
Right.
And I think that's the thing that we have to figure it out.
And I think that everything that is surrounding us in the world, that's the Christian's response to all this is, what does love require? And are we loving like Christ loves us? And that's the big question that has to be answered.
Because that's what the Bible says.
Right.
Love others as Christ has loved you. So what does that mean you do?
Are you going to the tax collectors, to the Pharisees? Are you loving them? Are you inviting them to the table of Christ? Are you giving them the truth? The truth not of as you see it, but the truth of Scripture. Because that's the only truth that matters. Not whether a mask does or doesn't protect you against a virus, or the vaccine will or will not kill you. That's not what the truth we should be focusing on right now. We should be focusing on the truth of Christ. We have an opportunity right now, and we're wasting it. We're wasting it as a church.
Time for Fun Facts with Fuller.
There will be no fun facts today. No, I'm just kidding.
We haven't had that one that somber of a note in a while, bro.
It's so hard to transition out of that.
It is.
But it's like we're looking at it's like an hour and 5 minutes.
But I think this is why I wanted to talk about it, because I feel like it's such a heavy conversation that people don't want to have.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that needs to be had, you know?
Yeah.
So, but we got to end it, bro. We got to send the people on their way. Bookmark this episode.
And
give people a little something, and let my mom go back to sleep.
Give your mom her house back.
Because it's almost it's 8 till 11 right now. So, Fuller, let's land this mug, man. What fun fact do you got for us today?
All right, the fun fact.
I did not look.
Today,
I didn't look.
You lied because you talked about it earlier.
Wait, which one was it?
You're gonna hear it in a sec. But you're like, oh, I didn't know this. I'm like, oh, this guy.
Oh, it's about that thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot.
It's about the place where
I have
a lot of people.
world's worst memory.
It's a place where
Don't conspiracy theory this one too.
It's a place where a lot of people want to go.
But some people don't think,
or want people to move to.
They don't think we actually went there.
So today's fun fact is about the moon and how the moon has its own time zones. Did you know that an astronomer even designed a special watch that relies on lunations, or the amount of time it takes for the moon to revolve and rotate around the Earth? It's got its own time zone, its own time. Lunations.
How does that even work when there's nobody on there?
What I want to know is who's like, man, this is so cool, the moon, that I'm going to make up time zones for the moon.
That's a power move. That's a power move.
Somebody just had a lot of time in their.
What did you do for a living? Oh, I gave the moon time zones. You did what?
I made a watch that was based off of lunations.
I mean, it is pretty sweet. It's a fun fact.
I want to see if we can find one of these watches online.
Pull it up while I tell people where to go. Right. I want to see how expensive one of these watches are to get.
Let's see here,
because I'm sure it costs more than an Apple Watch. But I'm sure you can. I wonder if you can get an Apple Watch app for that. That'd be interesting. An Apple Watch app for the watch it. So anywho, while you're looking that up, just like always, guys, we hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Our community with RTC has been growing leaps and bounds is the only way to say it. So I know there's a lot of you new guys out there, new gals out there as well,
and people, and
new Tabasco girly out there. I don't know. I had to lean into it one more time since we're wrapping up the kitchen series. We'll call this one, huh? The Mark's Mom's Kitchen series. But, we would love to connect with you over on Instagram or Facebook. We got the Twitter. We post episodes on Twitter. We're not very active on Twitter. No. We're active on Facebook and Instagram. So go hit us up there. Yes. Send us an email. You got a question, text it to us. Leave a voicemail at our voicemail at 574-400-5352. I remembered it.
Good.
Reach out to us. Real Talk Christian Podcast at gmail.com. We try to make it as simple as possible to find us.
And don't forget about our sponsor,
Lifeway and the CSB
Bible. If you're looking for a Bible that you want to have a good time reading, check out the CSB. It's an easy read Bible, and one that Mark and I thoroughly enjoy in our spare time. So
that is our go-to Bible. And hey, we talked about mask a little bit. We don't know what Delta variant is going to do, but we are still selling our RTC face masks.
We are.
And neck gaiters over at the store. So you have to go to the website, realtalkchristianpodcast.com.
Go to shop, boop. And there you go.
There's T-shirts, there's sweatshirts.
And I'm thinking we should buy some of these watches, man. They're only $300, these Lunation watches.
Do they at least look cool?
I mean, it says NASA on it. That's pretty cool.
Oh, goodness.
I'm pulling it
That's
up.
hilarious. Well, we'll let people look it up, too, because we got to land this plane. That actually looks pretty sweet. Yeah. I love it. Well, guys, we love you, but until next time,
take it easy.